ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. It is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders of childhood, often diagnosed at young childhood and lasting until adulthood. There are How many students with ADHD are currently being served in the United States? There are 6.1 million that have ever been diagnosed as of 2016, according to CDC. But current diagnosis is there are about 5.4 million, according to the CDC in 2016 survey. There's a breakdown here by age. So from 2 to 5-year-olds, there are about 335,000, and then 6 to 11-year-olds, there's 2.2 million. And then adolescents 12 through 17, there's 2.9 million. How has the number of students identified increased in recent years? What are some of the reasons for this increase? From 97 to 2016, it has increased from 6.1% of students to 10.2% of students. Some of the causes for this increase are increased cognition by doctors. They know more about the condition. Rising in awareness from parents and schools. Environmental factors, often at an early age, exposure to lead and pesticides, or prenatal exposure to tobacco and alcohol. A few of the other factors that they think could be causes of ADHD are poor nutrition, sleep deprivation, and then blue light emitting devices. Behaviors, characteristics of students with ADHD, and how these characteristics make it difficult for students to learn and participate in school. There are basically two different types. There's inattentive and hyperactive impulsive. And then there's some of the inattentive, some things for the inattentive students with ADHD have are they make careless mistakes, they're easily distracted, they don't follow instructions well, they have trouble organizing tasks and don't always finish their work. They often lose things like homework or jackets or things like that. The hyperactive student fidgets or squirms a lot. They have trouble staying in their seat, trouble playing quietly, they're always on the go, and they talk excessively. The impulsive student is extremely impatient, blurts out a lot, and interrupts a lot. Here there's a graph that kind of shows how many students have the two different types. The hyperactive is about 2.5% of ADHD students, and then the inattentive is a little bit less at 1.3%, and then the ones that have both are about 0.9%. This makes it difficult for students to learn because if they're fidgeting a lot or have a hard time staying on task, then they're not listening to the teachers. And if they're not listening to the teachers, they're not getting the knowledge that they need to do well in school. And then that makes them frustrated and maybe makes them not want to learn, and that makes it harder on the students. Also, 20 to 30% of students with ADHD also have some type of specific learning disability. So on top of not being able to pay attention and all that, they have another type of learning disability, which makes it really hard for those students to learn and succeed in school. Do all students with ADHD demonstrate the same characteristics or degree of behavior? No, they don't all share the same characteristics or degree of behavior. Some students with ADHD don't have problems in school at all. Some need to be placed in special education classes, and some just need a little extra time to complete tests and assignments. I think that a lot of this depends on the medication that they're on. Some medications don't work for students, and some do, so they're going to act differently. Um, Also, classroom management. If you have a teacher that doesn't have very good classroom management, the students feel like they can act out, and so the students with ADHD will act out a lot more. Um, I think due to the different types of ADHD, a student that is hyperactive might be more interruptive in class and might act out more as compared to a student that is just inattentive. They just kind of aren't really paying attention, but they're not maybe as severe acting out. And then the combined may be even worse because they have both of those and they get really frustrated. Also, I think it depends on girls and boys. So typically, girls' symptoms are a lot less subtle, and so they won't show the same degree as a boy of these characteristics. What category are students with ADHD identified? ADHD is not considered a learning disability. It actually falls under the other health impaired, according to the IDEA 2004, for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Um, there are many students that have ADHD that also have some other type of disorder. A lot of times it is a learning disorder, but there's also other types of disorders that come along with ADHD. Here's kind of a breakdown of some of them, not all of them, but some of the disorders that a lot of ADHD kids will have, depression or anxiety or a combination of both or conduct disorder. And here's kind of the percentage of how many ADHD students also have another type of disorder. Effective class-wide interventions for all students, especially for those who display characteristics of ADHD. For a classroom to work well, it needs to have good classroom management, and this will also help the students with ADHD because they will, if there is a set, clear set expectation for them, then that will be easier for them. If they don't have that, then it's harder for them and they feel like they can just kind of do whatever they want. So in a classroom, you should establish classroom goals for the whole class to work on together, establish clear rules for the entire class, follow the school-wide discipline plan if there is one set. That way they know from class to class or within the hallways or whatever what is expected of them. Establish rewards for appropriate behavior. So this is so that any kid in the class, not just certain kids, so that even the ADHD kids, so they know that they can get a reward for showing the appropriate behavior. Establish a class reward system. Establishing a class reward system helps students help one another because they know that if one kid is acting up, if they help that kid, then the whole class gets a reward. And so that's rewarding for everybody and has the students work together to receive this reward. Another thing that is a good thing to teach your whole class is organization strategies and study skills, because a lot of students with ADHD struggle with being organized and knowing how to study. And so if you teach this to the whole class, then that really benefits those that have ADHD and struggle with that kind of thing. So just having these class-wide interventions will help all the students, but mainly the ADHD ones, because they'll know what is expected of them and they will follow the rules a little better if the whole class is given the same rules and goals. And it also gives potential for improvement in the behavior of the entire class. And then here are my references for my slideshow.